right. Welcome to our summer reading club meeting for this week. Today is Monday, July 13th, 2026, and we are so excited here at GLS to be welcoming three great presenters to talk about Georgia as Model Employer, or GAME for short. Georgia as Model Employer, Building an Inclusive State Workforce. We have three presenters for you today, and I'm trying to get to where I can read their bio to you, and I'm having some trouble. I thought I had this all sorted out. Okay.
We can just introduce ourselves if that's easier for you.
That would be so wonderful. Thank you so much.
Welcome. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. My name is Stacey Valrie Peace. I have the pleasure of serving as the State ADA Coordinator for the State ADA Coordinator's Office. I have been with the State ADA Coordinator's Office for 20 and a half years. And our office works with our state of Georgia agencies to try to ensure that we're following the mandates of ADA, of the Americans with Disabilities Act. Our primary customers are state of Georgia agencies. However, we work with anybody who may contact our office and may need some technical guidance or assistance or resources. And I have the pleasure of working with Lisa Williams, who is our GAME employment specialist, and I'm going to let her introduce herself real quickly.
Thank you so much, Stacey. That was a great introduction. My name is Lisa Williams. I am the GAME employment specialist. I have about 15 years of HR experience, and I've been specifically with the State ADA Coordinator's Office, Stacey Peace, and our team for approximately 16 months now, and it's been an exciting journey. So I am happy to be here, and thank you so much for allowing us to be here. Thank you again.
Did we want to have Doug introduce himself now or wait till when he presents?
I'll just do it real quickly. Thank you.
Okay, sure. Great.
Thanks, Lisa. Well, hello, everyone. I am the one who's fortunate to get to work with Stacey and Lisa and Sarah. It is a joy to not only work with them, but to actually get stuff done, which is something I love about them. I am Doug. I work at the University of Georgia at the newly minted, some of you probably know us by the Institute on Human Development and Disability, but we are now known as the Ralston Institute on Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities. And there at the University of Georgia, among many things, I run and direct a center called Advancing Employment. And I'll be back a little later in the presentation to talk a little more. Thanks.
I guess next slide. In fact, you can skip all the way to our agenda slide if you like, Sarah. Okay. So I'm going to just very quickly go over the different areas that we're going to discuss today. And so for our agenda today, the first thing we're going to talk about is why GAME was created and just kind of what the purpose of GAME is. We're going to talk about some additional objectives of GAME. We're going to talk about the State ADA Coordinator's Office's administrative functions for GAME, building the foundation, training, and resources and continuing growth framework for GAME, our GAME training initiative and what our foundational training modules are, additional GAME trainings that we have provided in this just past fiscal year, FY26, our GAME survey preparation and the designation of what we call a GSR or a GAME survey representative, and then the survey preview, why it's important for our GSRs to prepare via the GAME survey preview before they actually complete the GAME survey, why that matters, our GAME survey schedule, a brief overview of the content of the GAME survey, what's new on the GAME survey for FY26, and additional GAME survey information, and then some final thoughts. So next slide, please. So the purpose of GAME is really multifaceted. It really is something that I think Georgia saw happening across the nation and other states and said, we want to be a part of this. So one of the key factors within GAME is that we're looking to expand workforce talent by accessing an untapped, a diverse pool of qualified professionals while joining, like I said, at least 19 other states that have enacted similar model employer legislation. Across the nation, you'll hear SAME, which is state as model employer. And so Georgia, when we decided that we were going to join that initiative, the bill was entitled GAME, which is Georgia as model employer. But you may hear SAME, the acronym SAME, a lot. We also want to provide systematic accountability by requiring state agencies to submit annual reports to our office outlining the percentage of jobs filled by individuals with disabilities at designated pay levels. We provide training and support through GAME. We provide targeted training for human resources professionals and hiring managers across state agencies to better navigate reasonable accommodations under the Americans with Disabilities Act. And we also are looking to engage private sector leadership. So we want to encourage private companies to follow the state's lead in inclusive labor practices. GAME initially began as a bipartisan bill. It was Senate Bill 384, and it passed both the Georgia House and Senate. And then on May 2nd of 2024, Governor Brian Kemp signed Georgia as model employer into law. And so the code section for Georgia as model employer is 45-19-60 through 45-19-63. And I think that Sarah will be sharing these slides with you, and there are some hyperlinks within the slides. And there is a hyperlink on this slide that'll take you to the actual legislation so you can read the bill in its entirety. Next slide, please. So there are some additional objectives of GAME. We want to increase employment opportunities. We want to remove barriers, workplace barriers. We want to promote accessibility, which is really key, especially with the new Title II regulations that had come out, I guess, a couple years ago. We're supposed to go into effect in April of this year regarding accessible information and communication and technology. The DOJ did push that deadline out by another year. So state agencies have till 2027 to get on board with that. But we really find that it's important that we promote accessibility on all levels. We want to support equitable advancement. So it's not just about hiring people with disabilities, it's also about having them advance and get promoted and move up within the workplace structures. We want to strengthen workplace inclusion. So we're trying to also do a cultural shift. We want to make this something that's, it's just not, it's just part of what you do. And in state of Georgia employment is that you work to be as inclusive as possible. And we want to improve organizational culture, which is a little bit of what I just said. So next slide, please. So our office, via the GAME legislation, has certain administrative duties. And so we are responsible for coordinating the implementation of GAME. We are responsible for developing statewide guidance, delivering training to our HR professionals that work for our state of Georgia agencies, providing technical assistance to those HR professionals, collecting statewide data via our GAME survey. And then once that data is collected, we prepare and submit an annual report to the governor's office and several other members of the House and Senate within the state of Georgia. For our first survey went out last year, and we had 95 state agencies who participated in GAME last year and who completed the survey. So we were able to submit a report to the governor's office that had all the data from all 95 agencies. And we are very thankful to have increased the number of agencies that participated this year. I think we're at like 122 or 23. So we've increased the number of state agencies, and that's our goal. We want to get eventually all of the state agencies on board with our GAME initiative. And then we're also responsible for supporting continuous improvement. Next slide, please. So as I stated previously, GAME was passed into law into May of 2024. And to be honest with you, the role of our office, it's outlined in the legislation, but there really wasn't a whole lot of information as to how to go about doing it. It was just like you're tasked with these things, and so we had to figure out what that meant. So initially in fiscal year 25, our office met with disability employment experts at the U.S. Department of Labor's Office of Disability Employment Policy, or ODEP, and the State Exchange on Employment and Disability, or the acronym for that agency is SEED, and other disability employment focused entities such as Advancing Employment, which Doug leads. So we met with them to kind of gather like best practices, talk about what the other states are doing, and to kind of get their expert guidance on how we might be able to create a successful game program here in Georgia. Each state that has a same or state as model employer program does it a little differently. There are some states where there is like a coalition of individuals that work on their same practices. There are other states where maybe a particular office that is tasked with it. So everybody's kind of doing it a little differently, but we wanted to get guidance from those who have been doing it on what's working, what may not be working, and then kind of try to tailor that to what might work for our office. In addition to that, we created a game logo. So it's on all of our slide presentations. And so it says Georgia's model employer. Then underneath the state logo, we has be a game changer. So that was something that our office created, and we tried to model it after our state ADA coordinator office's logo. We developed a game webpage because we figured we needed to have a place online where we house all this information, and we share the different training modules with the HR representatives, let them kind of know where they can go, like a one-stop shop where they can go and look at and see what the deadlines are, what the dates are. So we created a game webpage on our office's website. We created 4 foundational game training modules, which we'll talk about a little bit more later. We collaborated with the Georgia Council on Developmental Disabilities to help us roll out the training modules. We've shared guidance documents. We created a resource library. We provide technical assistance ongoing with all of our HR directors, supervisors, and managers who may need technical guidance on the mandates of the ADA. And then we created the game survey, which the agencies complete every year, where we gather that information and submit it in a report to the governor's office. And we have developed the reporting framework for the governor's office. What does that survey look like? How do we report the data, the graphs that we show, the numbers, all of that? So all of this was really a ground up kind of an initiative. There was really no format or draft that we could look at and say, oh, we're going to do it just like these people did here. We had to build it from the ground up. And next slide, please. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about our game training initiative. So when we first rolled this out in fiscal year 25, we developed 4 foundational training modules. And so each one of these modules was rolled out live via Zoom within a designated month. So module 1, which is entitled Be a Game Changer, was rolled out in March of 2025, and we rolled it out 3 times live. So our HR representatives had an opportunity, one session didn't work for them because of a conflict, they could join another session. And then we also recorded it. So once we rolled out all 3 sessions, we took the best recording of the 3 sessions and we placed it on our website. In case somebody missed a live session, they could go to our website and they could do a self-study and watch the recording on their own. And so module 1, as I said, is entitled Be a Game Changer. That training consists of the requirements of games. So we had to kind of let all the people know, like, what is this going to look like? The schedule of the trainings, the survey tool, and then gave them a little bit more information about the report that we submit to the governor's office every year. In the next month, we rolled out module 2, which was ADA Title I and the interactive process. And so that training consisted of mandates, regarding Title I of the ADA, the interactive process, and best practices when recruiting, hiring, and retaining individuals with disabilities as employees. And that was again rolled out 3 times a month live and then recorded. Module 3 was entitled or is entitled Federal Laws, Regulations, and Guidance. And this training consists of new federal regulations and workplace guidance that impacts GAME, because we understand that GAME doesn't operate in a vacuum. There are other federal laws and there may be some state laws that impact what we do via GAME. So we wanted to make sure that our HR professionals understood that and understood how they work together. So for instance, the Title II regulations that I spoke to regarding state and local government websites and mobile apps and the accessibility of those things. That's new guidance that has come out from the federal government that now is going to impact how we recruit, how we retain individuals with disabilities. So they needed to understand how these other laws may impact GAME. So that was Module 3. And then Module 4 is entitled Emergency Evacuation, Planning, and the GAME Survey Review. So this training consists of best practices as they pertain to conducting emergency evaluations, creating disability inclusive procedures, and then we did a preview of the GAME survey. We felt like it's important if you're going to hire people with disabilities in the workplace, you got to be able to make sure that they're protected and that people understand what they need to do if there's an emergency in the workplace. There may be some things you have to do differently when you're evacuating somebody who's in a wheelchair or somebody who has a visual disability. So we wanted to make sure we covered those areas as well. And so these modules are designed for HR professionals that work for the state of Georgia, but we invited agency leadership, ADA coordinators, and legal professionals to come to these trainings as well, because we felt like it was important for the agency leadership to understand what their HR professionals are going to be doing and what they're required of doing. It's important for the legal professionals that work within those agencies to be able to help support the HR representatives. It's important for the AD coordinator to know these things. So it wasn't just HR professionals that we opened this up to. We invited a host of state of Georgia employees to come and learn this information. Next slide. Okay. So in 2025, those are the 4 trainings that we rolled out. But then in 2026, what we did is we kind of looked at some of the survey results and said, okay, so what do we want to train our HR professionals or ADA coordinators, our legal professionals on this year based on kind of what we may see that might be some areas of improvement or things that they might need more information on. So for this past fiscal year, because we're now in FY27, for FY26, we had 4 additional trainings that we rolled out. And so the first one was entitled Virtual Meetings Ensuring Access for All. And so this training was done in April. It was presented by Rayana Daniels-Wynn. She's an ICT accessibility specialist with the Center for Inclusive Design and Innovation at Georgia Tech. We work very closely with CIDI, is the acronym, but we work very closely with CIDI in a number of different projects. And so Rayana graciously presented this training. We recorded it, so it is on our website for self-study. The next training that we did was Customized Employment, an introduction to the intent and the tools. This was done on April 20th of 2026, and our presenter was Doug Crandell. We're very grateful to Doug for joining us for that presentation. And so that recording is also placed on our website for self-study. And then on May 26th of this year, we did one on social media accessibility. And that was again presented by Rayana Daniels at CIDI. And then lastly, on June 23rd of this year, Lisa and I co-presented a training on ADA public notices, grievance procedures, and the FY26 GAME survey. So those were the areas that we talked about in this most recent training that we had. We, again, recorded this training as well, and this will be placed on our website. It's in the process of being placed on our website now. Next slide, please. So I think, Lisa, are we at slide number 10 yet?
Yes, we
Yeah,
are.
we are. Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to Lisa, and she's going to continue the presentation, and she's going to now talk about the GAME survey and the preparation for that. Thank you, Lisa.
Okay, thank you so much, Stacey. So let's talk a little bit about the game survey preparation and the designation of the GSR and survey preview. And so you'll hear me say GSR quite a bit, and that's the acronym for Game Survey Representative. So the actual designation of the Game Survey Representative. So each agency was to provide one Game Survey representative who holds the title of HR Director, HR Manager, or HR supervisor, and they were to complete the survey on the agency's behalf. So each game survey representative was provided a sample copy of the game survey for preparation purposes in advance of the actual survey launch. And I just have to say really quickly that I really appreciated this particular part of the game survey preview, because it allowed me, being new to the agency, to really dive in and kind of meet many of the directors or HR managers and supervisors one-on-one or via email. So I thoroughly enjoyed that as an alternative. So the purpose of the game survey preview, first, we wanted to assist each agency's designated game survey representative with collecting answers to each of the questions in advance of completing the actual survey. And many of them appreciated this because it gave them the opportunity to interact with their colleagues, just to be sure that they were submitting information for their specific agencies intentionally and as honestly as they, understood the questions or answers to be. And the next was the survey preview was also emailed to each of the representatives in a fillable PDF form. So the survey preview was for the agency's records. So a lot of them were really, honestly grateful that they were able to have that PDF format, because it allows them maybe to go back and look at some opportunities or some successes that they may have had in specific areas. So that was a good thing. And then finally, the survey preview, again, like I just said a few moments ago, was emailed to each representative. And so each designated game survey representative was required to review the game survey preview prior to completing the actual game survey. So really quickly, I did have a couple of game survey representatives reach out to me and just say, hey, is the same process we did for 2025 still in effect? Are we still able to, allow some of our colleagues to join in and help us complete the survey? And I said, by all means, whatever is going to work for you, then absolutely do so. Next slide, please. So we're going to talk a little bit about why preparation before the game survey matters. So preparation before the game survey matters because it allows each game survey representative to really prepare in advance to ensure thoughtful and accurate responses. Because this was brand new and information that they wanted to ensure that they, gave accurate responses on, because many of them were very dialed into ensuring that if there were any opportunities that they could in fact enact those as soon as possible. Next, it allows them to review relevant policies that perhaps they have in effect currently, and practices and data to support the informed answer. Next, it allows them to reflect on current disability employment efforts and allow for the coordination with colleagues as needed. And I just mentioned that it was very helpful in that sense. And then finally, it allows them to streamline the survey process for proven actionable feedback. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. All right, thank you. So the game survey schedule, the launch date was actually July 1st, and in fact, it's July 1st of each year. So each game survey representative will receive the link, or did receive the link via email on this date. The closing date is at 5 p.m. on Eastern Standard Time on September 1st of each year. So all surveys were to be emailed back to our office on that date at the close of business, 5 p.m. And unfortunately, there were no exceptions. And that still holds true that was true for 2025, and it holds true for 2026 as well and going forward. So the estimated time that the game survey representatives were given to complete the game survey was exactly 20 minutes. And if there were any opportunities where they had to maybe handle internal situations, external situations, they were able to do that, because the good thing is that they were able to complete them on their laptop, and if necessary, go back to them at a later date, as long as it's, of course, within the specific windows that I just mentioned, and pick up where they left off. So many of them really appreciated that feature. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about the specific of the dates that I mentioned, because they are important. Because if July 1st falls on a weekend, then the survey launch would be that Friday that directly precedes the July 1st date. And then secondly, if September 1st fell on the weekend, then the survey would close on the first non-holiday weekday following the 1st of September. So many of them also expressed joy for that clarification as well. Next slide, please. So let's have a brief overview of the game survey content, like what the survey questions the categories, that the survey questions actually fell up under. So the first spoke about the actual agency's information. So each game survey representative was to just give information regarding their specific agency. And then the next one was with specifics to the game training. Third, ADA Title I implementation. Fourth, ADA Title I training. The fifth topic was about employees with disabilities employed within the agency. Number 6, the emergency evacuation procedures, and Stacey talked a little bit about that with respect to our module. Number 7, the ADA Title I employment coordinator. Number 8, ADA facility coordinator. Number 9, the ADA Title II public entities coordinator. Number 10, the ADA public notice, which Stacey did mention that we had on June 23rd, an actual training regarding ADA public notice. And finally, we also had the training on number 11, ADA grievance procedure. Next slide, please. So what's new on the FY Game 2026 game survey? And these questions are specifically related to artificial intelligence. I thought that was very unique that our office added those specific questions to the game survey, because a couple of the agency representatives, they reached out to really express that they were excited about that new addition. So 3 new survey questions were introduced to better understand 3 key points. The first one being current AI implementation and employment practices. The second spoke volumes to the agency awareness of AI and accessibility. And finally, the third spoke about future training needs regarding AI and accessibility. Next slide, please. All right, so some additional game survey information that we thought was very important that our game survey representatives took note of. And one was the game survey access method. So as I mentioned a couple of slides ago, that the survey link was emailed to each agency designated HR representative on the launch date. Next, each agency's game survey representative did receive a copy of their completed survey via email for their agency's record. And again, we mentioned that there were no deadlines because failure to complete the survey, there were no exceptions to the deadline because failure to complete the survey by the deadline results in the agency's data being excluded from the final report to the governor's office. So many of them understood that last year and they do this year, and that shows in the fact that Stacey did aptly mention that we've had a couple more state agencies, buy into the game survey. So that speaks volumes to them wanting to be more engaging and excited about the overall game process. And then, so we'll talk a little bit here too about reporting and accountability. As we mentioned earlier, that by December 15th, 2026, the state ADA coordinator's office will submit the statewide game report to the following offices: the governor's office, the president of Senate, the speaker of House, Senate Insurance and Labor Committee, and the House Industry and Labor Committee. Next slide, please. Okay, so we've come to the point in the presentation where final thoughts are in fact going to be the next stage here. So Sarah, Stacey, we did aforemention that the questions that any of our attendees or guests may have, we will take those at the finality of the
Yes.
Okay, all right, perfect.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure I was
Yeah.
repeating that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay.
yeah, so our slide here, it just mentions our final thoughts, which actually is a perfect segue into what Doug is about to talk about. And so our final thoughts really is that we make progress with game through partnership, and the success of game really depends on collaboration. And that kind of segues perfectly into what Doug's going to talk about with what he's been doing. So we'll turn it over to you, Doug.
Thank you, Stacey and Lisa. I can't tell you what a thrill it is to see this presentation. I hope you all take the time to review the resources. They're wonderfully done. I couldn't be any more proud of the State ADA Coordinator's Office. And I'll say it again, it's the best one in the country.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Doug. We appreciate you.
We're so appreciative of all the hard work. These guys didn't they didn't blink an eye when they had to take this on. And as Stacey said, there's just not a roadmap for each individual state. And so I got goosebumps once again listening. Well, I'll keep it brief so we can have some conversation. But one of the things that I think is really, really cool is that Stacey and others from the State ADA Coordinator's Office were present when at the Carter Center for our tiny National Disability Employment Awareness Month celebration back in 2022. We said, hey, why don't we have state as model employer in Georgia? And from there, Stacey and then the wonderful Lisa, everybody's been involved in making this, a reality here. And so I guess I'll just talk a little bit about what we're trying to do also under the Georgia Council of Developmental Disabilities, and then a little bit under our opioid project here in Georgia. So the first part, which probably makes the most sense to folks in the employment and disability area, is that we are working with community rehabilitation providers. So those are often, as many of you know, referred to as CRPs. Just one more time, community rehabilitation providers. Those are organizations, most of the time nonprofits, who are charged with serving folks with disabilities. Sometimes that CRP is very focused on employment, and sometimes they're not sure how to get started. And so, as we all know, state agencies aren't just housed at the Capitol. There are local offices of state agencies all around the great state of Georgia. One of those being completely within our purview. All 157 counties in Georgia have an extension office. That extension office and system is run through the University of Georgia, at where I work at the College of Family and Consumer Sciences. So that was really not something that we had to spend much time on because we knew we had that footprint. And Stacey mentioned back in April, together we presented a presentation on customized employment, and we focused on a guy named Cole down in Bullock County who works at the extension office. Totally customized, tons of accommodations, and it works for everybody. So we're continuing to do that, and we've written into our scope of work for the Georgia Council on Developmental Disabilities. Again, this year, 3 local areas where we will pair the community rehabilitation provider with local state agencies. We've been doing some of that through Zoom. When we can, we like to do it in person, and we'll be doing some of that in August as well. In addition to the community rehabilitation providers, you also probably know that we have a robust network of centers for independent living. We have not gotten started on that yet, but have had some discussions about doing that in Georgia, just like we have with the CRP. So stay tuned for that. We're excited about those local connections because to follow up really this great piece of legislation, the way that it has been enacted by Stacey and Lisa and others, really makes it accessible, right, in every way. And so the great training and all that is so superb. Our role and our challenge is to take that and help those in local communities connect. And that way, right, if somebody, a state agency is maybe not meeting the mark they had set for themselves, we can help with that. In addition to the Centers for Independent Living and the community rehabilitation providers, there's another one that a lot of folks in Georgia just don't think as much about unless you're connected to it. And those are called RCOs, or recovery care organizations. You may have seen in the news over the last 3 or 4 years the large opioid settlement funds in every state across the country. Georgia's is large, hundreds of millions. And we have a small project where we are helping both public and private employers and businesses view the recovery workforce as viable, right? There's just as much myth around somebody who's recovered from an opioid addiction as there is around low vision, blindness, using a wheelchair, augmentative communication. There's just a lot of myths. So these recovery care organizations are very much like the Centers for Independent Living and less like the community rehabilitation providers. RCOs are generally run just like CILs by folks with lived experience, by those who've gone through recovery themselves. And it's no surprise to any of us, right? Disability, addiction, mental health is in every family. And so we are really enjoying using game also as an avenue for some of these job seekers and making sure that they don't get left behind. And obviously, many folks, particularly with prescription drug use and misuse, those rates are higher in folks with physical disabilities. And obviously, addiction is closely connected with mental health. So those 3 prongs, the community rehabilitation programs, the Centers for Independent Living, and the Recovery Care Organization, is where we see our fit the best at UGA to truly help lead around Georgia's model employer. And so we're thrilled with that. I just wanted to end here before we open it up with questions and discussion. When all of us got together to try to figure out how we might do state as model employer, which ended up becoming Georgia's model employer, there was kind of a series of things. And Stacey mentioned this, removing barriers. So there were a series of things that we needed to do. Certainly, passing Georgia as model employer was huge. That next year in 2025, oh, I'm hearing some thunder. Anybody else? In 2025, we also, same coalition, helped pass what is known as the Dignity and Pay Act. Some of you may know that it's still legal in Georgia to pay some workers with disabilities subminimum wages. And 13 states, when we started on this path, had passed a ban on subminimum wages, either through legislation or an executive order. And we did that through legislation, really mirroring it after the bill in Illinois, and we ended up passing it sooner. So next year at this time, it will be illegal in Georgia to pay subminimum wages to folks with disabilities. Finally, the other piece that is just fascinating and is a thrill for me, that's part of kind of this suite of removing barriers, right, is something known as DB 101. And that connects deeply with any employment. If you are on benefits yourself, or have a family member, many times we get the wrong information about what will happen to our SSI or our Medicaid or SSDI and Medicare, or as for my sister who is a dual eligible, all four of those. So DB 101, again, just like Georgia's model employer, just like the Dignity and Pay Act, we join another, I think, 17 states that have tailored Disability Benefits 101 for Georgia. And the great thing about it is it largely utilizes plain language, which is so important when we start talking about work incentives, things like IRWE, impairment-related work expenses, or PASS, a plan for achieving self-support. These things can get confusing quickly. And so DB 101, it took us 18 months to tailor it specifically for Georgia. But the coolest part, I think, is we had a symposium for youth and young adults with disabilities at the Jewish Federation of Greater Atlanta, JAccess, back in May. And we had a dad and his son present on how they use DB 101, particularly the calculators, to determine if he should take more hours. And DB 101 will then give you a printout or something you can download as a PDF as you interact with the Social Security office. So all of these things are tied together, and we'll continue to try to remove those barriers. I'll just say one more time, and we use this all the time, the training that Stacey and Lisa and others pulled together around GAME is so helpful that we have 2 community rehabilitation providers that are using it in their orientation for staff. So we're super proud of these accomplishments and changes. The thing is, it's going to take all of us to continue to push, as has been said before, for quality improvement. And that's what I love about the survey. All right, I'll be quiet. Shall we open it up, my friends?